Hello everyone, my name is Tanush Kohli and welcome to another playlist, and this playlist is called Object Oriented Programming in Python. So may have already heard about object oriented programming, but it may be a little bit confusing for people who haven't heard about it. Let me just clarify what object oriented programming is. So you may have heard about C, Fortran and Pascal. These are programming language that don't have object oriented programming. Those are simply called procedure oriented programming. Every program that we write in these programming languages have to be procedure oriented. It means that procedures are very important in these programming languages. What are procedures? Just we write this code and then we perform something. We write another block of code and then we perform something. Some conditions are checked, and just the procedure is being followed without any other memory modification or any other things. This is what a basic procedure oriented programming language approach is. But uh, while writing a program, the lines of code may easily reach up to 10,000 if you are making a software, even 1 lakh or maybe more. So at that point, what procedure oriented programming will do is that that program will go out of your hands. That means you won't have full control of that program. There might be some cases that you have already forgotten, and giving some random errors. A lot of things could be wrong in that program. So that's why we needed something more optimal, something more um, oriented towards our output. So that's why object oriented programming was created, and programming languages like C++, Java, Python, these are object oriented programming language. So in Python and C++, you can write a program without creating an object. That means these are partial object oriented programming language. But whereas in Java, if you have to even write a single program to print hello world, you have to create its object and then run it. So a class is a module which in itself which contain data members and member functions or methods. We will discuss a little bit more about this, but first let's just read. So here we define these subtasks into classes and its method. Why this is more useful? I already told you, like when you're writing a program, lines may just reach up to massive amount, and at that time you will start losing control of your program. So let me just tell you how an object-oriented program approach work. So in object-oriented programming language, everything is seen as an object. What is an object? Object is a real-world entity. It could be anything. It could be your computer. It could be my computer. It could be a human being. It could be anything that has its place in the real world. Everything is object. All right, just all right. Now it's much better. Sorry. So, what are the advantages of Python? Like I already told you about that Python is not a completely object-oriented programming language. In order to run that is similar to C++, in contradiction to Java, that is we have to write a class every time in Java, even if we have to write a simple program to print hello world. Okay, so in object-oriented programming, what we do is that we created class. Class are similar to functions, but they are more oriented than functions. What function will do, if they are called, they will just run. But what classes provide us, classes just provide us with a lot of more functionality. We will discuss all of this functionality. Let me just show you that this is a class, then its object will be created, and then this object will be running. So this workflow is very smooth, as well as very understandable for even millions of lines of code. If you are writing biggest software in the world, it will be very easy for you to manage. Of course there will be problems, uh, but the approach is very easy, and it is very practical. Let me just show you some features, and then after that I will show you the code. So features of object-oriented programming language, they are, you know, the first one is of course classes and object. The second one is encapsulation, that is wrapping of data. Abstraction is nothing but data hiding. Inheritance, similar to what inheritance means. Polymorphism is a very unique concept to object-oriented programming and really very fun to learn. So let me just tell you about object and classes. This is an introduction video. So in this video, we will learn about all these features, and then we will be having separate videos of each and every topics so that we can learn more and more about them, because one video is definitely not enough. So object is anything that exists in real world. Example, a table, a chair, a person, etc. Every object has some behavior related to it and its attributes. Example, person name is Raju. Raju is an object and its attributes are his name, age, gender, etc. Similarly, Raju can also perform different actions like walking, talking, sleeping, etc., etc., etc. These are called its methods, or functions for sake of simplicity. A class is a group of name but does not exist physically, but objects exist physically. What this means is that this is just an entity, nothing else. So this entity does not exist physically, but what object is basically extension of this class, making its place in real world. Okay. So another example, this will make things a little bit more clear. Suppose we have a class named flower. Of course we know that there are a lot of flowers. So what are the properties of flower? It has smell, it has color, it has different conditions. So those are its attribute, but there exists no flower named flower. you know just to be sure, there exists no flower named flower, but there is a whole class of flowers. That means if we are saying flower, we can use rose, we can use lily, we can use any flower, but its object will be roses, lily, jasmine, etc. They exist in real world, they have some smell, they have some color, and they are extension of this flower only, they are part of this flower only. So they exist in real life and objects, and they are objects of the class flower. A lot of things might be clear, some might not be clear. Let's just write a program and try to understand what is actually happening. So a reason that object oriented programming in Python is so much easy, because we can run the program line by line itself in interpreter without any issue. So let's just run this program line by line, and also the same time we will be looking at the variables. So this is variable section. What here is happening is actually that whenever a variable is created, it will take some size, it will take some value and an address. So we will be keeping an eye over here as well. It gets really very easy to learn something using uh, variables. So now we have defined a class named person. All right. So what it is having a name. Person's name is Raju. So here we have name. Its size is 4. As we all know that string takes 4 size. Okay. We have age. It is an integer and its value is 20. Now we have a function that is called talk. What humans do, they talk. So what they will tell us, they will print name and it's his age. uh, a quick note that we are using CLS here. CLS is a default parameters, it represent class. That means this function is a part of class, and the name that we are searching for is also defined in a class, it is a part of class. So okay, now we are back to the class, and now we are creating its object. So this is a syntax of creating object. Person is our class and p1 is its object. We can change its name as well. Okay, let me just run this line. So what actually happened, that per p1, is a variable name now, and this is the memory created. This is the place where person p1 is having its status. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to call function that is defined in person class, and that function is called talk. So person talk. Now we are in this line. You can see what this is going to print. This is going to print person's name, and the name is defined in class. Again, when I started learning object oriented programming language, I actually never knew that there exists something like class in it. We already, everyone told us there are self functions only and nothing like this, so it was pretty confusing for me. Now a lot of concept is clear, so let's just run this. You can see that Raju is printed, and let's just again, age is also printed. And now what we are using is that we are just printing p1 dot name. It means whatever name value is stored inside this value, it will be shown to us in output, and our output should be Raju. See, Raju again. So yep, that's really very interesting topic. And this is how class work. Another variable p1, like person, and p1. Now there are two variables. This is a type, and this is person's type. This is a logical extension of this class only. uh, and we will just see another program now. All right, so now let's just see what else we can do. But there is one thing that I want to tell you guys before moving forward, is that a very basic approach of object oriented programming is to create multiple objects at the same time, so that the memory is somewhat like shared, somewhat like you know a betterly managed, which cannot be done in procedure oriented programming language. So let me just tell you something more about Python. So we are again having the same class person, that is, again has a action diff talk, which just tells us name and age that are defined in its class itself. This is easy code, nothing to worry about. Now what we have is that we are declaring an object similar to what we did in the previous program, but here we are again creating uh, another object p2, and then we are making it talk as well. So what the current output should be, that it should return us p1's name, and it should return us p2's name. So this is something that I wanted to show you, because there is going to be some cakey stuff over here. Okay, just a defined class input name. So let's just input the name as Raj. Raj is our name, age is now 20. It just went over here to find talk, and then see what is here. This is our pydev underscore whatever the name is. Like, let's just see what the name is. Okay, so this is how values are taken input. These are raw kernel inputs. Then we used age, and then we used name. Now what else we have? uh, you know Again, class is defined. So let's just go to our object creation person, and we have p1.talk. So p1.talk should go to the talk function, and then it should print class.name, that is Raj, and class.age, that is 20. Correct. Nothing wrong in that. But now what we are doing is that we are creating p2. So p2 is another object and of the same class. So what should happen? A very basic approach should be that it should start again from no name, age, but just see what happens over here. Another object is created p2 in some other memory location, but just see how much address is similar. Like up to this d part, the address is exactly similar. So this is what something like shared memory and memory efficiency is concerned. Okay, so p2.talk, it never asked us for this input. So if we run this again, it is just gonna print us no cls.name, that is Raj, and again age as 20. So let's just see that if there are two individual p1 and p2 names available over there. So p1 dot name, it should just print Raj. Okay, Raj. Let me just hide this and show this to you again. Raj, and let's just print this again. It is showing us Raj only. So what actually happening here is that this, instead of creating this second object, Python at this moment overwrites this object itself and creates another object at the same variables. P1 is now being overwritten as P2. So yeah, that is how it is working, but this isn't how programming should work. Every time we are running this, so it should take input, it should take age if we are specifying it. But this part is very very confusing for people. This part will be cleared in our next video, where we will only and only focus on classes and object. So let's just see encapsulation. What is encapsulation? uh, you all would have seen a capsule. What a capsule is, all the medicines are inside a capsule. They are wrapped inside capsule. So in programming, what encapsulation defines? It defines wrapping of data. Simple sweet definition of encapsulation. So in Python, specifically in Python, because in other programming language, this definition does not fit accurately, but in Python, this definition fits accurately, which I'm going to just tell you. It isolates the member of class from other class, and hence we do not overwrite the same variable again and again, and then we make some shared memory. This was some concept that I was telling you about, that instead of overwriting this thing, what just happened at this moment, we just overwrote the object with p1 and p2. Now what is going to happen is that we will be having multiple objects at the same time. Let me just this. Okay, cool. So let me just take another, and we have object 2. So this is our object 2. Let's just resize this a little bit, and here we are having our class. Okay, not an eraser. Let's just use a class. Okay, so this is our class. All right. CLASS. Sorry, it just takes a lot of time for me to write. It is not happening. So, uh, okay, let's just erase this part and use a text box instead. Class. It is hard to draw using mouse, if you guys can relate. So this is a class, and what is happening here? We are having two objects. So object 1 is separate object, and object 2 is separate object, somewhat similar to p1 and p2. But here we will not uh, override this. Instead, what we will do is that this is its block, and it is having its own separate name and age and other variables, and this is going to have its separate name, its separate age, its separate variables, all the other variables that are defined in this class. Suppose age is defined in this class and name is defined in this class. So no data will be overwritten, but this will be somewhere in a shared memory, where all of these objects are kept. This is such a beautiful concept that I was never able to understand this in C++, but while writing this program in C++, things have been so clear to me that it just makes me feel very beautiful about this programming language. Again, we are just defining class, then we have define initialize. Okay, so should this program go into the self name and age at this time, as it was when we created this part? Every time uh, class was created, this part was getting you know run. But no, this will be just skipped. All right. But did you just saw what just happened here? For a split second, all of them were in a running state for that single instance of time. Now what we are having another function called talk. This function will also not run anything, because you know it is there in our function, in our class. When it will be called, it will be running at that time. So now we have p1. P1 is our object, and it's class is person. We are using parentheses. This is just a syntax, normal syntax. All right. Did you just saw what just happened? It just passed its value itself into this initialize statement. Actually, what is happening, this underscore underscore in it underscore underscore is a very special function. It is somewhat a constructor. I will tell you what a constructor is, but for this moment of time, you can say that this program is just going to take run every time an object is created by itself, and we do not have to call it. Similar to a constructor, but construct calling it a constructor would be wrong. So now self dot name is equals to input. Another thing to notice that now we are using self. When I first wrote my program, when I first learned how to write a program in Python, only thing I was told was that there are these selves, and you know there is nothing without self in Python. What this self means, that object one is a p1 here. So for this object, what self value is, self is equals to p1, like, or let me just write self over here, self, because every time we are defining different variables name. So this is what happens. How we can read, how our compiler will be reading is that it will be saying p1 dot name, person1 dot name. All right, let me just run this. See, p1 dot name. Okay, another thing that I can show you. No, no, yes, correct, sorry. So we are here in self person, and now we will be writing name in it. So let's just name it Ram, small Ram, enter. Okay, see, it just took input, and now let's just run another line. Age is equals to 20, but see that it just went inside this p1 only, p1 person. Now what should happen? Uh, no, next line, p1 dot talk. What is defined in talk? It is just a normal print statement. Let's just run this, print, and print. What should be printed at this moment? Ram and 20. So p1.talk is also completed at this moment. Okay, so let's just hide this for a moment and run this program, more forward. So what is happening, that now another object is being created, p2. This object name is p2. So it will not overwrite this block of statement, this block of memory, because what is the name of this block of memory? It is p1 dot name, and we used self dot name, so it will be replaced by p1 dot name. Yo, that this is how it works, and this will have the same name, but it will be called p2 dot name, p2 dot name dot name. Sorry for that bad handwriting, please ignore if you don't like that. So again, it is, it went to the initialize part, and it is asking us for name. So here we give name SHYEM, Sham, and run this. Now age is already defined. We can also take this as an input. And now p2.talk, what this will do, it will go in our talk function and print out the statements Sham and 20, its ages. But as I told you, nothing of this worked when we were using simple classes. And now if we do p1 dot name and p2 dot name, nothing is actually overwritten. If we see this program, p1 dot name is separate thing, and p2 dot name is another separate variable saved somewhere in our shared memory. uh, so let's just run this part as well. P1 dot name, it should return Ram, and now it should return Sham. Just look at this. uh, I have, like, I like this program so much that I actually never knew that it is such a beautiful program. Sorry for saying this thing again and again, but I actually like this program a lot now. So init, like we used init. Init stands for initialization. Init is a special function. It helps to create instance variable of whose copy is strictly available to that uh, se- object, or self.id refers to the variable in that object. In this object, everything is named p1, so it is again having p1.age, p1.age, and Similarly, all the variables in this object when used with self and initialized as underscore underscore init underscore underscore will be having this format and will be sharing memory. All right, I'm not going to say that line again, that this program is absolutely amazing. Sorry, I said it again. Now we are going to talk about abstraction. What is abstraction? Like I just told you what abstraction was when I was telling you. It is as simple as data hiding. But why do we use it? So a very good example of this, first let's just see its definition: to hide unnecessary data from a user. Example, car. Example, a car. So a driver should just know how to drive a car, not the knowledge about how radiator, battery, and its mechanical and electrical equipments are working. Nothing of that sort is necessary. If you know how to drive a car, you can drive a car. So if you are going to buy a car, all you should know is that how to drive a car. This is some data that is not that much useful, but still useful in some sense to other people. So this is why we use abstraction. Advantages are to get rid of unnecessary data and also to hide sensitive information from being accessed outside the class. In Java, we have public, private, protected, aka access specifier, aka also known as access specifier. In Python, nothing of public, private, protected is available. So we have to write that thing as a program only. So let's just run this program also line by line. First, class my class will be defined. Again, its memory is being allocated. Now we are in our initialize function. This program shouldn't, this inside code shouldn't run at this moment. Then it just realized that there is another function. It will go back to our class, and then it will now create an object, and now object name is object. Object is of my class with parentheses. Every time I say parentheses is because I forget to write these parentheses. That's why I am using this parenthesis again and again. Now what will happen, so let's just see. uh, it is self dot y1 is being initialized as 5. Okay, but here we can see that there is, this is not a correct way of defining a variable, if you know, because underscore underscore, even using a single underscore at the beginning of name, is against the rule of variable declaration. But in Python, this is how the data is hidden. We tell our interpreter that y2, this data shouldn't be accessible outside this class. So let's just run this, and it went again to our statement, and then we are just printing y1 at this moment. Cool. So y1 is 5, and it is perfectly visible. Now what we are doing, we are adding these two, so the output should be 5 plus 3 8. Now the thing that I wanted to show you guys isn't actually this. Let's just print object dot y1 again. Output should be 5, correct? I sorry for running that line by line. But what if we just write here y2? mm, let's just run this. Y2, the class, my class object has no attribute y2. All right, you must be saying, Tanishq, what is this? There are two underscores underscores, so you should be using underscores underscores. All right, sorry for that. Let's just run this cell again. All right, it has no attribute underscore underscore y2 as well, because this memory is this memory space is literally hidden from whole world, and only my class knows what underscore underscore y2 is. So to know the value of underscore underscore y2, we should ask it to my class. So let's just ask what my class has its value. So object dot my underscore my class underscore underscore y2. This is how we call a private part of code. Sorry, private part of code. And this process, this one liner is called mangling, data mangling. I never knew that we can do this part as well, but this is a lot like me learning the thing and then teaching you the thing, not me knowing all the things and then teaching you the things. I'm also learning at this moment, so for all the mistakes, please, I'm sorry in advance. See, 3. Now what we have is inheritance and polymorphism. Easy parts. Inheritance, similar to biological inheritance, that our father's genes are then carried into our genes, and you know going to our ancestors, we are carrying all of their genes as well. So in programming also, the concept is similar. We create new classes from existing classes and acquire all the features of our parent class to our class. Uh, this is a god level of management code. uh, we will see when we will be writing this program. So let's just run this program line by line as well. We first defined a class A, then we just defined A is equals to 5, B is equals to 3, and then we defined a method 1. Note that we are using class here because we don't want it to create multiple objects. I just wanted to show you a simple class example. That's why I am using class here. I could have used self as well. No, like no problem in that. But just to keep things easy, I wrote this way. And now we are creating another class B that extends A. In this parenthesis, we are passing A, and then let's just run this. C is equals to 8. We are defining this in our another class B. Now we are having a method 2. It is method 2. This was method 1. And let's just go out of both the classes, make our object. We are making object of B class, but B class is a logical extension of class A. So we will be able to access all the values that are there in class A as well. So we are first running object.method1, which is not defined in our B class, but it was defined in A. And C, it just directly went in that part of code, and then it just printed 5 and 3, and now it just went to obj.method2, and it will just go to that part and print C. Simple. That's it. Polymorphism comes from a Greek word. It means poly means many, and morphism means forms, many forms. In other programming languages that are not dynamically typed, what dynamically typed programming languages are? See, here when we are defining any variable, we are not giving its data type. So in these programming languages, polymorphism is really very easy. You don't have to support any, provide any data types with it. So we are just here writing a function addition, which will be adding a and b. Now we are calling a and b, and we are providing integers here. So integers a and b will be added as 7, and then a string will be added as hello world. So this is very easy part of polymorphism. When we will be, um, in the next video, we will see function overloading, function overwriting, what these concepts are. Object oriented programming is absolutely fun to learn, and I seriously just fell in love with this programming language while I was learning it. So I just wanted to share a lot of things with you. That's why this video is such a long video. So sorry for this longer video. Next videos will be shorter, and they will be focusing more on only on these all the functions, all the sorry properties of object oriented programming languages, classes and object encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Stay safe and keep coding.